Welcome back to Heart of Employment, the show that is dedicated exclusively to California employment law. But today we're talking a little bit about company culture with Director of Business Affairs, Edgar Davtyan.
That is giving me too much credit, Dave.
I'm so happy to have you here. A lot to talk about. I think people are thinking about company culture a lot right now because you hear about the economy, you hear about layoffs, you hear about work from home, and this idea of what does it mean to be part of a company, I think is kind of almost being remade in today's world. So I'm really excited to get your thoughts. First, why don't you just give us kind of a lay in the land, and in your mind, what does company culture even mean?
Good question. Thank you for having me. I'm realizing I'm following some tough acts.
You are.
Some,
You're in a safe space,
some amazing attorneys who've sat in this chair.
Yeah.
People much smarter than I am. But I'll give you sort of my view on what it takes to build culture.
Yeah.
Especially as it relates to, say, a law firm environment.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the law firms that I come to know and I come to interact with somehow in my mind did not emphasize culture as like a building block, as a foundational block.
Right.
So a lot of, I think, what I bring to D.Law here is paying attention to those kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Paying attention to a fabric. In my mind, it's a fabric that weaves our people, our practice, our way of business together into this thing that we loosely call culture. However, I think we need to define a little bit what culture is, right?
Yeah.
So in the context of any company, forget about law firms,
Mm-hmm.
in the context of any company, culture in my mind is rules and regulations of how you treat people, how you want to be treated, and in that context, it applies to employees and clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you can think of set of rules, so to speak, of how we're going to interact with each other, how we're going to treat each other,
Mm-hmm.
what we can and cannot say. It sounds very rigid, but the reality of it is, in the world of real business, those lines get blurred in a way that it becomes second nature. But somebody needs to define it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to say, these are the things we stand by. These are the words that describe us. These are the practices that describe us. This is how we talk to clients. This is an okay thing to say. This is not an okay thing to say. So ultimately, you do that for some time, and then it becomes a second nature to you. It becomes sort of these some unspoken, some spoken rules about how we go about business every day. And if you really just take a moment and kind of think through for yourself, who do we interact with every day? It's us, right?
Yeah.
It's our coworkers, it's people we see every day, it's the clients we serve. So culture in my mind is this collective of spoken and unspoken rules
Mm-hmm.
that by which we interact with each other, we interact with our clients. And I'm very proud of of those sets of rules that we've built for D.Law, because ultimately, I think what it led to is we've built a community.
Yep, I can attest to that.
So I think about that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Community of people who enjoy each other's company,
Yeah.
who actually care about each other, who show up here thinking that they're going to see and talk to somebody that they actually like. How hard is that nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit, culture is a bit unspoken, but a lot of it can be, sort of materialized and memorialized, I guess is the word I was looking for, in a way where, sorts of sort of set of rules that we abide by. So very proud of the culture we've built here.
You guys have definitely built a really impressive culture, and especially at a time where I was thinking about this last night, companies seem to be very profit focused and not culture focused. I know friends who work for companies we've all heard of,
Yeah.
and their life is hell.
Yes.
And it often feels like these companies literally hate their employees. So why do so many companies hate their employees right now?
I'm going to answer that with a precursor to the answer.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that I find to be quite interesting about law firms,
Yeah.
is that there's a lot of stigma around the kind of shops that people run. What I mean by this is, law being one of the oldest professions in the world is, it has a lot of history, right? So if you think of a law firm, you typically think of, very stodgy kind of offices with a lot of mahogany wood and a lot of, no offense to the younger or older generation, but more mature,
Yep.
folks in their careers, right? So it's an older form of business which comes with older ideas and it really it speaks to kind of an older generational business that is more old school, I guess is perhaps another way of saying it. But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, because all these new world ideas are not only relevant to the practice of law, but they're much needed, because all of a sudden, if you practice a new way, like social media, I'm sure we'll touch on that for a little bit, then all of a sudden you find that, the business can be rejuvenated in a way that it hasn't been, right? In my past experience, for the first 20 years of my career, I was involved with an advertising agency called Eisenberg Group, which is totally the opposite of all the stigma that I described to you surrounding, law firms. Advertising agencies are usually
they're
the
known to be cool.
cool kids on the block, right? All the great ideas, new ideas come from ad agencies. All the innovation comes from ad agencies. So I think having spent a good 2 decades in the advertising world sort of prepped me to look at the business of the law firms a little bit with the glasses of an advertising firm, so to speak, because truthfully, it is, there's a world of difference between how law firms operate and how advertising agencies operate. So I think a lot of what's going through my head on a daily basis is, how do you take the best of both worlds, right? How do you practice something that is perceived as cool and innovative, and overimpose that on a business that is often thought of as old and stodgy, and how do you sort of combine and find a happy medium? So I often think that what describes the kind of company that D.Law is, my analogy in my head often goes to, if a really traditional company, say J.P. Morgan Chase or Bank of America, like an old school American company, was to have a baby with a really young American company, say call it Google or Facebook, what would that mixture look like? And somehow in my head is that is what D.Law has become, right? You can think of old school wisdom infused with new school ideas and innovation, and perhaps that's what sets us apart from the rest of the field.
So then I still want to bring you back to, why does it feel like so many companies hate their employees? And you guys, certainly it doesn't feel like that here. So what are you guys doing, both in the ad firm and a law firm, that other companies are not doing in terms of how they treat their employees?
I think it's going to sound cliche, but it comes to culture, right? You cannot hate a culture you love, meaning you cannot hate something that you enjoy doing every day, right? So when you don't have the rules, when you don't have the concept of, a community, we talked about community a little bit in the beginning, right? It's really hard to hate the community if you feel like you're part of the community. To me, it always comes down to, have the employers done enough to foster an environment where people are valued, people show up to do their best work, people show up to be challenged. And oftentimes, even if you ask companies, they think they're doing this, but ultimately, the ultimate judge is the employee, right?
Yep.
And even more so, the ultimate judge sometimes is the client, right? Who we serve. And oftentimes, I think not enough focus on building that community is what gives you that outsider's view that perhaps people hate the jobs they show up to. I often think of a really nice apartment building, right? Where you love your home, that home being equivalent of your space in the office. But if you really hate your neighbors, it's kind of hard to go home every day,
Yeah.
right? Somebody's going to make a noise, somebody's going to do a barbecue, and you're not going to like the smell. You know, whatever the issue is, you have to look at a workplace in the context of a community. The community needs to be united as you possibly can be, because let's face it, I mean, 100 people show up to a barbecue. No matter how good the barbecue is, there's going to be one or two people who are not going to like the meat or who don't eat meat, right? So it's very hard to please 100% of the population. But chances are, if you're able to please vast majority and nurture them in a way where they feel like they're part of the community, I think those are the companies that don't have the problem that you're describing, which is, I hate showing up to my job. So
It feels like respect and appreciation are both two things that I think this company does well, you personally do really well.
Yeah.
And I think that can often, just those little things can be very hard for some companies are like, I pay you. I don't need to respect you. I don't need to appreciate you. But I think it makes a huge difference.
It does. I would add two more things to
Please.
your magic equation.
Yes.
One is love, right? We want to love the place we show up to. We want to love the people we work with every day. We want to love what we do. So no matter what the context is, if you add love to the equation, all of a sudden everything starts to make sense.
Yeah.
I often say, not to be biblical or anything, but treat people the way you want to be treated. It sounds very trivial,
simple,
and simple.
Yeah.
But stop for a moment and kind of think about that in everyday work aspect, life aspect, relationship
100%.
aspect, whatever it is. Do I want that to be said to me if I'm on the receiving end?
Exactly.
Do I want that to be done to me if I'm on the receiving end? So, yes, and yes to what you said, and let's add love, and let's also add treat people the way you want to be treated.
Exactly.
You will be amazed. Well, not amazed. Maybe you're not amazed, but I'm amazed at how many times I actually have throughout the day in my daily routine, I have to stop and ask that question to myself. Am I treating you the way that I would have liked to be treated?
Yep.
And it's like going to gym. It's like practice, right? You have to do it to get better at it. Sometimes it comes to people as second nature. Sometimes it's not second nature. So I just would love to think that culture and community, things that we're touching on today, are much better served if you can infuse a lot of love, and you can infuse this very simple notion that people want to be treated the way you would have wanted. As much as we think that we're vastly different, we want the same things. We're often times after the same thing. Same things make us happy, same things make us sad. So I'd like to think that 90+% of the issues at the workplace that leads to, dissatisfaction could be solved with this equation.
I wanted to talk about a few workplace policies that I think are big in the zeitgeist these days, and all of them touch on D.Law, and interested to hear what Eisenberg was like as well. Let's first touch on work from home.
Yes.
I know you guys during COVID did work from home. Now I'm pretty sure you're basically 100% work in office. Maybe some lawyers have some different situations. What do you think about work from home? Where does that fit within company culture?
I would thank you for that question. Something I think often, because it's never a stagnant topic. In my head, is a very evolving topic, especially pre and post COVID. It's ever evolving in my head. So I may not have the exact perfect formula, but I will tell you is that community is really hard to build over a distance. I also would like to think that giving love to people over a screen is a lot harder than within a space, right? Within an office. So a lot of what we see at D.Law, a lot of what we practice at D.Law, especially if you're early in your career, you need to be nurtured. You need to be surrounded by people to give you the experience and the attention and the care that you deserve. And in order for that to happen, you need to be here, right? So As you get further along in your career, you get more autonomy. You
Yeah.
get more, you're more, the things that you crave in that community that I was describing, that formula changes a little bit, right? You start introducing kids and family, and
Yep.
it changes. But I'd like to think that what we have found at D.Law is like a perfect mixture and the perfect balance of how I would describe, still in many aspects, as a hybrid environment, but it depends really on your level of expertise in the subject matter and the level of care we think we need to give you as an organization to make you successful for your development. So I guess it's a long-winded answer to say it always depends, right? I don't hate the work from home situation, but I also like to think that we have greatly, as a company, we have benefited by really standing strong on our beliefs of what you need to be successful as an individual. So sometimes that means you need to be here 5 days a week. Sometimes that means that you can be here only 3 days a week. But I'd like to think that that varies depending on where you are in your career.
Yeah, I think that's a really important insight.
Yeah.
I know I've heard data on, workplaces where a lot of young people find their partner. It's where they get their best friends. And so this idea that we should all be working from home, which is nice, you get robbed out of a lot of the sociological benefits.
Well, it's going back to the community, right? How many times have you accomplished something meaningful over a screen? Probably not a whole lot.
And develop relationships where you really get to know a person.
100%.
Not just,
100%.
oh, hey.
It really comes down to, what do you need from your company at this time in your career development, right?
Great quote, yeah.
What is it that, we oftentimes, speaking of love and hate relationship with employees, that conversation somehow always ends up, what does my employer need from me?
Yeah.
Let's flip that. What do I need from my employer?
Yeah.
So oftentimes when I come here, I think about what we're giving to people. I sometimes do think about the, output that, we get from employees, but oftentimes, I'm the person who thinks about what is it that we're giving to them. So oftentimes I can solve a lot of on the ground sort of issues and be more nurturing if I know that you're here and I know these set of 4, 5, 6 things that I need to give you on a daily basis to make your life more enjoyable. I'll give you a couple of very specific examples because this leads to things that I feel passionate about. Office space, right? Architecturally significant office space is not something that companies often think about when designing their spaces. Now, architecturally significant, that oftentimes I find using myself that quote only to mean space that inspires you, right? How do you make space inspiring? Colors, architecture, light, natural light, artificial light.
This feels very ad firm, right?
That's this is my this is me growing up in an ad world where these things are sort of given,
right,
or granted, so to speak, but oftentimes that's not thought
lost
of as,
in all the other
right.
areas.
But it doesn't have to be, because think about what I said earlier. Ultimately, at the end of the day, 90+% of what makes you happy is the same thing that makes me happy. Whether you're a lawyer or an ad person or a copywriter or an artist, it's amazing what that other 10% does, by the way, of that difference, of how much difference that can be. But chances are, if you show up to a space that inspires you, that makes you happy, that, gives you a little bit of an edge to be the best version of yourself for that day and, for other days to come, then all of a sudden we're thinking about the stuff that, as an employer, we are providing versus, it has to be a two-way street, right? It can't be give, or it can't be take.
Yeah.
That balance is, we talked about space. We talked about, food, right? I mean, venture to say you're as foodie of a person as I am, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
eating good food at the office. I mean, having a space, having a kitchen. I was very lucky at Eisenberg to have grow up sort of in this office space that gave an amazing opportunities for people to share a meal,
Yeah.
right? And here as well, we're building an amazing kitchen where people come together, eat together, music, right?
Hmm.
An opportunity to come together with your community and come together and go to a musical act, or sometimes we bring the musical acts into the
Yeah.
office and
Yeah.
have like a mini unplugged concert. It's really hard to accomplish these things over the distance. So artwork, right?
Yep.
Again, this is the ad person in me, and thinking of my advertising world and my advertising world friends who are, a lot of them are artists. A lot of them think about art as a form of inspiration, to get you through your
Hmm.
day and to get you through to do whatever is it that you've set out for yourself to do for the day. You know, I pay a lot of attention to art, right?
Clearly. Look at the set.
And it's not because it's just what Edgar wants to do. It's because I think it adds. It's one of the things that we give to folks who chose to be part of this community. In fact, I think it enhances our community.
A couple of other things you guys kind of give, quote unquote, that I wanted to ask you about was one, you guys are a pretty 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30 office.
Yeah.
Again, you hear a lot of people, you only get credit when you stay till 6 or till 7. Why are you leaving at 5? Why are you leaving at 5:30? How dare you? You don't care.
Yeah.
So talk about, the culture around work ethic and how you better put all the hours in that you can.
Listen, there's no substitute for hard work.
Mm-hmm.
There just isn't. I think the next trillionaire would be the one who figures out how to, how to artificially sort of create the hard work formula. So that hasn't been invented, and I don't think it ever will. What I will say though is that we don't define hard work by the number of hours, right? I mean, it's just, again, it sounds simple and trivial, but the bottom line is, we're humans, right? We, as an employer, we realize that, you're not just a worker, you're a human first, right? And there's a whole lot to you as a human outside of your work.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about one of my main, remember the principle, treat people the way you like to be treated. The moment anybody treats me as just a work machine, that's where the conversation ends.
That's a great point.
That's where the conversation ends.
Yeah.
We'll work once or twice together, and that's it. That's
it's your boundary.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
So think about people as humans first. When you put the humanity or humility, human nature in humans first, you come to realize that it's not defined by hours.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the business world is divided between this work-life balance notion. Some believe that work is the life and there's no balance. Some believe that you need to have a work-life balance, such as, I work from 8:30 to 5:30 and then life begins.
Right.
I'm not a believer, nor do I think in any of the companies that I've come to build share that notion that work starts at a certain time and life starts at a certain time. You have to have a good mix in order for you to feel human. And as a human, and as soon as you feel good about yourself as a person, I find that work usually follows.
Yeah.
So we'd like to think that we've built a business at D.Law that is very work-life balanced.
Yep.
But I also tend to think that people get to define it for themselves.
Yep.
Right? If you feel valued, if you feel like you're part of the community, if you feel loved, and if you feel that you're accomplishing for what the day has for you, oftentimes it sounds harder to find a balance, but people I think do a pretty good job finding that balance. So I'm a big proponent of let's figure out the humans first, and then the work follows.
Can you think of a time where you had a company culture decision that actually impacted the outcome of the business?
I can think of one right now.
Great.
Starting
Put you on the spot.
starting on January, not January. This is December. December 19th. We're closing offices for 2 weeks.
I was going to ask you about that.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Well, it's crazy, but at the same time, think about, if, listen, this is, let me get that thought to the finish line for a minute.
Please.
So people get plenty of vacation and personal days and sick days and what have you. In addition to all the paid time off that they get here, we close the office. We close D.Law offices for at least, for about 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year's. And that is in addition to whatever time off you get based on, PTO, based on policy, right? And the reason for it is because, we want people to have guilt-free family time. Right? How important is that to set up for the next year? We're going to have these people show up to work, hopefully rejuvenated, well-fed, surrounded by love, and having the time of their life with their families. I can't think of a better business decision for us to give people that time to really enjoy guilt-free. And guilt-free is a key word here, because oftentimes
you're not emailing,
right?
Yeah,
and
you're not calling.
Like I attorneys would probably give me a hard time on this, but whatever the legal term is, but I think we file as attorneys, they have to file notice of unavailability with the courts. That says that basically we're on a break. We've gone on a 2-week hiatus. Right? And I find that, if you look at it at a business level, putting my, business owner hat on, we're losing 2 weeks, right? People unproductive hours, unproductive days. That's a really short-sighted view in my mind. So,
well, it's kind of a PR move from an employee standpoint, because all these employees are going home to spend all the time with their family, and they're like, oh, do you know my business just because of 2 weeks off?
Talk about reasons not to hate your employer, right?
Exactly. So everybody's thinking, wow, this is a great company. They really appreciate their employees. It just makes you guys, it forwards the goodwill.
You know what's the coolest thing about everything you just said is I get to unplug, and I get to
you get to benefit too.
I get to try not to do something for 2 weeks.
I love that. Is there anything you thought was a good idea for company culture, and then you thought, you know what, maybe not?
Beer at the office. No beer at the office.
That's fair.
There are a few things. I'll tell you what constantly goes through my head is, nowadays that D.Law has surpassed 200 individuals.
Big.
I rarely think about things that we could do and we couldn't do in a vacuum. It used to be that, when we were much smaller, somebody needed to make a decision and somebody needed to come up with, this is a good idea. This is not a good idea. No, let's veto that. Let's do it. Nowadays, we try to be a lot more communal about things that could potentially work. And I'd like to think that we've built a strong enough community where all ideas are welcome, and try to figure out, involve more people. Involve more people into, because ultimately, when you do, then people think, it just seems to me that the bigger you grow, the more input you need to have from a larger community, because it impacts more people.
Makes sense.
And oftentimes, as business leaders, that's a tough place to be, because, you want to be agile, you want to be innovative, and those are things that usually require speed. But again, I think we find a right balance where, to involve our folks, as, not to harp on the 2-week Christmas break, but that was just an idea that we came up with and then run with it.
Yeah.
Didn't think much of it other than, we were all employees of others at some point. So would we have liked to have a 2-week
Right.
guilt-free time off? The answer was yes. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure more of these ideas will start trickling. I'm not sure if your audience is aware, but we are on a verge of a big move. We're
Right.
moving to Pasadena in about 30 to 60 days time.
Super
So
exciting.
I'm sure new office, new environment, new building, new
Yeah.
space with
Well, I have a question
Yeah.
right around that is, what, as you grow, and you guys have grown
Yeah.
even since I've been connected with you guys so much, what values are hard to hold on to
yeah.
as you're getting so much bigger? I'm sure you've had your growing pains.
Yeah. Good question. In fact, one of the things that when I started at Eisenberg, I was employee number 13.
Wow.
And at some point, we grew the business to over 400 people.
Okay.
So I've again by my earlier days, by way of my earlier days, I've seen what it takes to grow a company while maintaining what's really cool about it when you're really small, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that are hardest to maintain are the simplest things when you're 50 people versus when you're 200 plus
Yeah.
or more, right? There's some magical thing that I think in the business world swirls around, once you cross over the 100-person mark, it's really hard to stay consistent with values and culture. Once you cross the 200-person mark, it's even harder, and I would imagine it gets harder and harder. But I would like to answer your question by saying this, which is something that I've experienced both at Eisenberg and here.
Yeah.
The simplest things, if you're not, let's just say when you're 20 to 30 people think of your company as really cool, really innovative, really, progressive, so to speak. Taking or maintaining those values are a lot harder when you're growing.
Yeah.
So to me, keeping the consistency, if nothing changed between when you were a 20-person company and your 200-people company, then you've succeeded.
Give us an example of like one value you think is difficult to maintain.
Care, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to attend to 20 people.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to attend to 100 people.
Right.
It's a lot harder to attend to 200 people.
Yeah.
And I can't, sometimes my mind is blown by, bigger company cultures. You think about Facebook and Google
sure.
and Amazon.
Yep.
We are in this ever evolving world of, humans first, right? So it's like, when you had one kid, all the attention went to that one kid. When you had two kids, all the attention went to now two kids.
Yeah.
I often think of that analogy as we have 200 plus people to attend to. So oftentimes, when you're bigger, like the care aspect could be, well, perhaps they don't care about me as much, right? They don't talk to me as much. Something as trivial as, I'm not getting a hello from you every day, right? So that's why I say the simplest of items and simplest of gestures and, and I'm not even talking about policies, right? Sometimes, when it's a lot harder to, it's a lot easier to afford, 2 weeks of vacation for 20 people than 2 weeks of vacation to 200 people.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to, share a company-sponsored meal for 20 people versus 200. So I'm not even talking about the business aspect of it. Just things that we need as humans for our everyday happiness oftentimes can get overlooked or overshadowed or perhaps mistakenly perceived as not as much care when you're a much larger company. So I take pride in the following, that if you built the right community with love and care, oftentimes these things work themselves out within the community, right?
Mhm.
Because oftentimes, the community is what you're looking for nurturing relationships with, rather than say people at higher ups, right?
Yeah.
If I enjoy my cohort, if I enjoy my you know my coworkers, if I enjoy the people who are, I'm sharing a meal, or then that becomes a lot more manageable, you know, uh, a lot more manageable, I guess, from the perspective of the culture sort of starts taking over for you as a leader, and that's a beautiful thing
Yeah.
because you don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to end this interview talking about employees. There's a lot of people getting laid off or looking for jobs, and we've been talking a lot about kind of top bottom,
Yeah.
but let's talk about, the workforce. Give us a 1, 2, 3 from what you've seen working in an ad firm and a law firm. What gets someone into a job, what keeps them there, and
Yeah.
what makes you notice them?
Okay. Good questions. Let me see if I can.
So how do they get in? When
Yeah.
you're looking at new
Yeah,
hires,
yeah.
what do you look for? I mean, we all know, work ethic, resume, but anything,
Yeah.
any insight?
Yeah. I'll tell you. Every time it comes to human interaction, I look for the basics, right? Oftentimes, the basics are so overlooked in this employee-employer relationships, and I'm really talking about basics.
Like?
Show up as well dressed as you can be. Don't be late.
Yeah.
Smile, give out positive vibes, be prepared, do a little research on the company you're going to. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was impressed by people who showed up and asked questions about something that you wouldn't otherwise know unless you did a little bit of a digging,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of the times I find that, if you get the basics right, oftentimes people show up with no resume, or a resume that looks like it's been in the washing machine. Get the basics right. One of my favorite things to say, and I if you ask people around, they'll attest that I say this a lot. You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Right.
Never. And somehow we're wired that way, where it's very difficult, if not impossible, to break that first impression mold if it's not the right mold, right? So you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make a great first impression.
Yep.
One of the things that I often think about as, and you're right, I've been involved with hundreds of folks whom I'd like to think that I've influenced in some shape or form, as far as career trajectory. I often think about what it takes to work with someone from the perspective of, are you a good human? Right? And it's really difficult to make that determination within, a short period of time. Say an interview lasts, 30 minutes to an hour. But I often try to sort of feel whether you're somebody that I can work with. You're somebody that actually folks that you're going to be working with can work with from the human perspective, not as a professional. I know a lot of great professionals who are very difficult to work with, and I will attest to you that it's not a great working relationship no matter how good the person is, right? So don't underestimate the human aspect of, are you a person I'd like to hang out with? Is it something that between us that could be very human-like, right? Again, it really goes down to basics in my head, but oftentimes that's overshadowed by, I can do this, I can do that. It's a little bit. There's a little bit more. That relationship is a bit more complex when you start working with others, especially if you're working with larger group of individuals. That showing up as a good human matters, right? The other thing that I sometimes think about is, putting myself in the shoes of a prospective employee. Is that wherever you're interviewing, is that a company I want to be associated with no matter what the industry is, right? And that often leads to a subcontext of or a sub-question. Are the leaders of that company somebody that I want to associate myself with, right? And if you can't answer affirmatively yes, then I would look some other way, right? Like the old, business school sort of, old, not old school, but in the business world, they say, choose the leaders.
Yeah.
Don't choose the job.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of truth to that, right? There's a lot of truth to that because oftentimes, the jobs follow once you've associated yourself with the right leader and with the right company, right? Oftentimes when you're starting in your career, very little is determined about your career trajectory as far as the industry, right? I mean, who knew I would end up in an ad world,
right?
And a law firm, right? That wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
But I chose leaders that I'd like to work with, and they gave me opportunities, and I go by that to this day, where I often think that the job will follow if you're able to associate yourself with a company that has great values, has great culture, treats you like they want to be treated. And oftentimes I also find that that's a reflection of the leaders that run the company. So one is perhaps equivalent to the other, but choose the leaders, choose the company that actually aligns with your own values.
Yeah, I think a good message to take away from this whole podcast episode is that personality matters.
Yes.
And so a lot of people who might have not gone to the best college or have the best resume or gotten the best grades, they can get down on themselves. But honestly, you could still show up and be the most likable, the most hardworking, the most
100%,
kind.
100%.
And that's the person you're going for. So show up in a good way, and that could overcome so many other bad things.
You've put it 100 times better than I could have done the tape. So yes, thank you. And and I don't want to, maybe if we're gonna end on this, I would say, life's too short not to have fun.
Yeah, you always say that.
Let's choose a company that actually promotes fun.
Yep.
Right. What's work without fun?
Yeah.
Very bland. Very.
It's
very
a miserable life.
It is a miserable life. So I'd like to think that companies that do well are the ones that are able to infuse the fun with the work, and ultimately, if the community that you've built embraces it, great things happen.
It's not always going to be fun, but let's make sure when it is, it's really fun.
Perfect.
Well, I've had fun, Edgar. You're the best. Thanks, man, for showing up. Thank you guys for watching, for listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can email us at heart@d.law with any questions or comment on any of our videos. We're always here to help. And until next time, this is Heart of Employment.